Hey everybody, Godzilla 419 here. I just got back from Shin Godzilla. I managed to get the earliest showing, and wow. Right, guys, I'm gonna start off with spoilers. A lot of spoilers. So many spoilers. Don't watch this if you don't want spoilers. Okay? Honestly, it was just amazing. It starts off actually kind of fast, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting more of a build up, but it just sort of like starts going, and then boom, a disaster happens, and they're like, "What the hell's going on?" And then, of course, there's one guy who's like, "Well, there's some videos on the internet to kind of make it look like there's something alive over in this giant column of steam." And they're like, "No, it's some sort of volcanic activity." And Godzilla's tail appears, and it's like, that was like, oh, and then just starts, Godzilla's like moving around, goes up river system, and they're like, it won't come out of the water, it's too big. He comes out of the water and he's like this big lizard frog thing, and you're like, what the hell is this thing? And then it kind of mutates while you're watching into a bipedal organism, and it looks kind of more like Godzilla. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And one thing that it showed that I really loved was that there was like a bureaucracy. I wasn't expecting it to be, show how the government works and all that. And it was insane. How does anything get done in Japan working like this? They're about ready to, engage Godzilla with the attack helicopters. And they're like, civilians, hold fire! Civilians, hold fire! Civilians, hold fire! Civilians, hold fire! And then they get into the room the prime minister's in, and you're like, okay, they're going to tell the prime minister. No, some guy at the end of the room goes, there are civilians in there. Should we open fire? And you figure he's talking to the prime minister. No, he's talking to the guy over here. And the guy over here is like, there's civilians in the area. Should we open fire? And you're like, oh, surely he's talking to the prime minister. But no, he's talking to this other chick. And then there's like, she's like, Mr. Prime Minister, there are civilians in the area. Do you wish us to open fire? And the prime minister's like, no. It's like a freaking game of telephone. Oh my god. And then they're talking about how you can't have a press conference without a cabinet meeting, and a cabinet meeting has to have another meeting, and this meeting, and that meeting. And it's like, I just don't know. And I know that kind of sounds boring, but you're abreast with this other group that are like, we're not really working with that. We advise this group so we can get stuff done. Of course, he reports to another hierarchy, but still, he's not having 30 people in it. It's like 4 that he has to report to. But they discovered that Godzilla has a new element inside him. It's like some sort of new radioactive isotope, which is freaking cool. But and they're trying to figure out what's going on. Godzilla leaves because he just gets tired of, waiting. He goes back into the ocean, and then he comes back. He's doing his thing. He's coming on land. He's doing his thing, and they finally get to attack him, and nothing's working. And he is just destroying everything. And the United States is like, hey, we got some bombers in the area. If you want, we can bomb him. And the Japanese government's like, yeah, sure, go ahead, do it. And of course, this is all sort of kind of been appearing that this is like the United States' fault for creating Godzilla, for illegal nuclear waste dumping or something like that. I really need to watch this again to catch everything, because I'm trying to read subtitles and watch a movie at the same time. And this is a giant freaking screen because it's a real theater. But yeah, they basically dropped these. From what they looked like, they were probably bombs that were designed to, either take out battleships, or they were like, daisy cutters or something like that. But they're actually doing some damage. They're blowing chunks out of Godzilla. Well, spines glow, nuclear fire. Actually, first it turns out it was regular fire, which was like, oh my gosh. And then, And he's like, shh. And then out of his back, there are like dozens of beams just shooting out of his back. And I'm like, what the hell? It's like a Godzilla disco ball. But it's like they take out everything. I'm like, oh my god. That was so cool. And Godzilla's, his main breath weapon, when he opened his mouth, his jaw actually kind of goes. I'm like, that is so cool. And you get these. Oh man, I just. They eventually, they're analyzing what data they can, and they're like, we think we can turn him off. Like he's a nuclear reactor with a certain type of coagulant that basically, because his blood is cooling him down, because he's like a living nuclear reactor. If we coagulate his blood, the reaction won't be able to continue, and he'll freeze. And so they do this. They're like, because every other country in the world, the UN gets together, the European Union, and Russia, China, and everybody, they're talking about, hey, we might just have to use thermonuclear device on this thing, because Godzilla kind of stopped. He went to sleep. He just stood there, and he's out because he used all those beams and everything after he, just annihilated everything. And they're like, we're going to drop, a giant nuclear device on him, a couple million degrees of heat. That'll burn him into ash. So that's plan A. And Prime Minister, he got vaped. So I believe it was like the agricultural secretary or something like that was the temporary Prime Minister. And he's like, oh, we don't got any better options. We'll set a time frame to nuke Godzilla in the middle of Tokyo. And you're like, oh. Like, really? Third time, Japan's going to get a nuke shoved up its butt. But, our hero, he's like, well, we have the freezing plan. If we can buy an extra day, we should be able to make enough of it that we should be able to, freeze Godzilla. And so, basically, the French, they're able to convince the French to stall the nuclear attack for a day. And the U.S. is actually kind of, into this plan, I think, because the U.S. ambassador is like, yeah, we'll allocate some resources to this. And, basically it's just a bunch of drones come in, draw all of Godzilla's fire, get him to use the lion's share of his, nuclear abilities so that they could get in, they knock buildings on top of him, send trains into him and blow them up, knock Godzilla down. Then they have like an entire fleet of cranes with pipes on them, just like feeding this coagulant into Godzilla's mouth. And they finally get it all in there. It takes two tries to do this, but they get all this coagulant in him, and they're like, "We've reached the good point. It should be working." And Godzilla stands up, and he's like, ah! And then he almost literally freezes. It's just like his body hardens completely, and they did it. They stopped a nuclear attack in the middle of Tokyo by freezing Godzilla with blood coagulant. And, oh my god, I quite honestly was thinking that they were going to fail. I was more than a little convinced that this was going to be, sad, we failed, boom, cue sad music and stuff, and then we're going to see what happens if Godzilla got nuked. But no, they did it. But the nuclear option is not over. Apparently, they basically said at the end of the film, if Godzilla wakes up, 24 hours, and they're going to drop a nuke on him. So I don't know if they're going to continue with another movie to follow up this one, or if they're going to start, doing a new restart to the series, or what, but this was just awesome. It didn't have Godzilla fighting another monster. And it, I was on the edge of my seat most of the movie. This thing is like almost a 2-hour running time. It felt like maybe an hour. And what I really liked is that the theater, for the most part, was fairly well packed. I mean, the front tier seats and some in the very, very back didn't have people in them, but there were a lot of people there. And this film I have not seen advertised anywhere outside of, like Toho Kingdom and all those other websites that specifically follow this. I've seen it. I've seen like little notes come up on Yahoo.com. That's it. Man, I can't wait till this comes out in on DVD or in Blu-ray, so I can give this thing a proper look at, a proper review. But oh my God, this was just so amazing. We live in a great time right now, guys, where we're getting to see real Godzilla movies on the big screen. And America's going for it too. They're doing their series. Japan, I hope is if they make a series out of this, I'm gonna be like, oh my God. But I'm kind of like not able to fully articulate how happy I am right now about this movie. 5 out of 5 right now. Now, that still might be a little bit of me basking in the afterglow. I literally just saw it. But solid movie. If it's not a 5 out of, I'm giving it 5 out of 5 right now. That might drop to like 4.5 out of 5, after multiple viewings. But I'm planning on seeing it at least one more time, if not twice, because I really want this movie to do well with this limited release. Because I know I have fans, guys who are watching this, over in Europe, where I don't think they've announced that they're going to show this anywhere. If it does well here, well, there's more white people over there in Europe. No, I don't mean to sound that, transparent, but seriously, if it does well here, they might show it in other markets, and it'll do well there, and that'll help, be like, hey, we need to make more of these, more, because movies can do really poorly domestically and just blow up in foreign markets and be total successes. Or they could be like really big successes in domestic markets, but be flops everywhere else in foreign markets. I want this to be a success because from what I've heard, it did really well domestically in Japan. I want it to have, a good box office here in the United States. And I want that to be reason for them to show it all over the world, because there are fans across this planet who deserve to see this in theaters because it is awesome. Anyway, I rambled for like 15 minutes. And yeah, it's getting late, so thanks for watching, everybody. Godzilla 419 signing out. Later.